Hey everybody, welcome back inside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. This is the practice report. It is brought to you by Byers Auto. That is Spencer Holbrook, Tim May, Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. We are one day closer to Ohio State and Penn State on Saturday night at 7:30. Still a pretty focused Ohio State team, but also some guys out here talking following practice that are pretty darn confident as well, and that starts with Denzel Burke, the true freshman cornerback. I think one of the main takeaways will be he said Jahan Dotson is nothing he couldn't handle.
Okay. I mean, I believe him. There's nothing we've seen so far of Denzel Burke this year that should indicate that there's going to be all of a sudden a receiver that he can't play with at least half the time. I don't think this is a situation where he's going to go out there and be intimidated just because Jahan Dotson had a really good game against Ohio State the last couple of years. And quite frankly, why would he? Why would he? Everything that Denzel Burke has done from the minute he got on campus has exceeded people's expectations, and I think at some point maybe we should just realize that the expectations are now the standard.
Everybody's expectations but his own. The first thing he was asked, are you still surprised at all that you've started every single game at cornerback for Ohio State as a true freshman? And he said, no, that's what he thought he would do. And it's the wild thing is we talked about him a few weeks ago, just about the swagger that he has and the comparisons, whether it was Bradley Roby or whoever else. He said those things today just so matter-of-factly, Spencer, yeah, I mean, it's nothing I can't handle. I see good players in practice every day. I thought I would start from day one. It's crazy. The confidence, he doesn't even say it in a cocky way. It's just straight business for him.
Yeah, it's all confidence, it's all business, and you saw him against, let's just go down the list, against Oregon, who has pretty good wide receivers, a bunch of four-star guys. The tight ends are the ones who did the damage. It wasn't the wide receivers. Denzel Burke was covering them. You saw him last week against Ty Freifogel, who torched Ohio State last year, and he was a non-factor in that game this year. Every guy that he's gone against where we've kind of questioned whether he can truly handle it, whether we say it out loud or whether it's just, one of those burning questions throughout the week, he's been able to handle it. I don't think Jahan Dotson's any different just because this guy's a top-of-the-line pro prospect. Well, newsflash, Denzel Burke's got 3 more years, and he's a top-of-the-line pro prospect as well.
I think he's down to 2.5 years at this point.
Absolutely. But
seasons.
But when you look at this guy, he's just a super confident, and like you said, the thing that jumps off the page is the fact that he's just confident. There's no cockiness involved. It's just strict and confident, and he's really smooth in the way he delivers it.
Yeah, he talks matter-of-factly. I was gonna chime in a second ago. Did Ty Freifogel even play last week? I was gonna be a smart aleck, but yeah. But Jahan Dotson will be the best receiver he's gone against this year, in my opinion, on Saturday night. So we'll see how that confrontation goes. How many times they're in the loop. But I'm just, from day one, I've been just amazed at this guy's physical ability and then his mental toughness of playing cornerback right out of the gate in major college football. Because, a lot of guys have to learn how to play the game, and then they have to develop physically. He's got both of those going for him. And like I said, he reminds me more of Denzel Ward when Denzel Ward was really good that last season than anybody else I've seen here in recent times, just because of the way he handles himself, how fast he is when he needs to be, how he's now sort of setting up receivers, hoping they'll throw the ball his way, because I'm not sure how many balls I asked him about that, how many balls even got thrown his way on Saturday at Indiana. So, yes, this guy, maybe – he should sometimes keep things to himself, but if they're fact, there's not bragging. I'm with you, buddy.
You got to have that part of the game.
It certainly helps us.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
I think it's great that we have that to talk about because, it'd be one thing if he said it every week and it wasn't true on Saturday. This guy is backing it up in games, and he's not the only true freshman doing that, of course. And there's one on offense that could probably use Denzel Burke's workload.
Yeah, I mean, Trevion Henderson, again, we asked him tonight, are you ready to get a full game's worth of work? And of course he is, but also he doesn't care. He's getting the ball 10, 12 times a game, scoring 3 touchdowns a game, getting 100 yards a game, and he said it, if we're up by 50 points, why do I need to play? Yeah. And it shows, we're talking about maturity about these freshmen, that understanding to say, I don't need to put myself or the team in this position. So
when you're averaging 2 touchdowns a game as a freshman, you're right out of the gate, you're doing something very well. And I even asked him if that list he told us he had in his head included the 18 touchdowns that Maurice Clarett scored, a freshman record at Ohio State, and he wasn't aware of it.
Well, I think part of that, Tim,
and he's going to get that,
is probably because he has bigger goals.
Well, I know, but we're talking about
No, I know, but
steps.
When he's making the list, he's probably never seen an Ohio State media guide. All right, well, there's a different section for freshmen.
Well, he'd never seen Ohio State before he enrolled, so.
But I'm just saying he's probably looking at the bigger picture. How many total touchdowns did somebody have? What's a single season record? I know that he did talk about that after breaking Archie's single game record.
Yeah.
But that's also one that
But you got to take steps, you know. I mean, and this guy.
But
his steps are very
This guy
quick.
has been the most impactful freshman running back that I've covered at Ohio State. And now, guys came along, like J.K. Dobbins came along. I mean, he was great in that first game, you know, and kind of, you know, he and Mike Weber had
You got
whatever.
me there, Tim.
But no, he
Maurice
definitely.
Clarett was certainly more impactful. Don't
No,
you think?
Maurice Clarett right out of the gate was, But like you and I talked about on my podcast, if anything, they overused him early, and by the end of that year, he was a med unit, you know, and
a little banged up, I'd say.
Exactly right. He was a lot banged up, you know, especially that Purdue game. You know, the Holy Buckeye. You know, he dropped his shoulder 3 times and had to get pulled from the game. My point is, I think they're using him. I think they're bringing him along correctly. I think we've agreed on that.
Totally agree.
Trevion Henderson right now, this is a weird comparison, but stick with me. He kind of
Oh,
reminds me of the best pitcher in baseball. You show up every 5th day, you throw 100 pitches, you dominate, and then every other day you come in and you get your rehab and you don't really have to do it much. Trevion Henderson comes into the game, scores 3 touchdowns, and goes to sit down and have a Gatorade because why carry the ball 25 times when you're up 50 points? Like, do you know what I'm trying to say here? Like
I've got a better analogy. He's a drop the mic guy. He comes in, scores a touchdown, and leaves. He's like George Costanza in that episode of Seinfeld. I'm out of here. You know, he drops a good line and he's out of there. I mean, that's kind of what it's been like. It's been cool to watch.
I think that the coolest thing about it is he can say that today about how, I'm fine with it, I'm happy about it. But this past Saturday night, he was.
Well, what else did he say? I said.
Well, he was looking for that helmet to go back in there on Saturday. You know, he wants more reps.
And he said that the 20 carry games will come.
Yeah, and they're coming. I think it's coming this weekend.
I think that starts
Of course
against
they
Penn State. You get into these November games, Ohio State's going to continue to throw the football, but I think that this game, especially after what Illinois put on film in the Penn State game last week, this will be a run-heavy game for Ohio State, in my opinion. But anything else jump out to you? Jackson Smith and Jigba, Marvin Harrison were out there, Matt Jones.
Marvin Harrison hasn't had any complaints about the way he's being brought along, and of course he understood the room he walked into
Did you know
there.
His dad played NFL
Yeah, his
football?
dad. Yeah,
Was he any good?
Yeah, he was an NFL Hall of Fame.
He's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
How about
Actually,
that?
yeah, he was a pretty good player.
I just learned that today.
And and the thing he talked about it, one of the things, the difference in the game from high school is just like you heard from Trevion Henderson, how much more physical it is. But these guys are adjusting pretty well on the fly.
One of the things that really stood out to me, didn't happen at a microphone or anything. These guys walked in to stretch, and as businesslike as Ryan Day was yesterday, this is about as loose as a one-loss team who could have its season derailed any given Saturday can possibly be. They're all business when they absolutely have to be, but this team is so confident right now. They're playing with an edge, they're playing confident, they're not playing cocky, but at the same time, it's a loose group of guys who's having a lot of fun doing it. And that, when you take that business-like approach, we see it at Alabama, and every once in a while you see Alabama kind of crack a little. When you take a business-like approach, but you save some room to just be loose and be, just a group of 18 to 22-year-olds, like that is a very dangerous thing to be when you talk about the other teams in the Big Ten. And I think this Ohio State team can only continue to get better because of the fact that they can turn that switch whenever they need to.
Do you think that that's related to Ryan Day understanding how young this team is and knowing that he has to be a little looser?
Yes.
Because if you think about him Saturday night pregame in that pregame circle, when they were doing Ryan Day out there jumping around I've never seen him do that before. And I think he's realizing that the youth on this team needs a little bit of that give and take from him it can't be 100% serious all the time when you're dealing with the youngest roster in Power 5 football.
Yeah, and to try and treat this many 18 or 19-year-olds like an NFL franchise would be shortchanging them on an experience for one, but for two, they don't know the routine. I think we would look back to the Oregon game and think about the situation, like the first time that they stay at the Blackwell and the first time that Trevion Henderson is going into the horseshoe that's completely full for a big-time game against a good team. Like, it doesn't really surprise me. They've never been through the pregame warm-ups and all the stuff that comes with that. I think that's relevant. Like, I'm not excusing the loss. I'm just saying that a lot of these things were happening to them for the first time before the game even started. So to expect that they would go out and do all of the warm-ups the exact same way that Justin Fields did or Dwayne Haskins did before that or JT Barrett would be folly. Like, CJ Stroud is doing it for the first time. Like, that's just a fact.
I keep telling people, man, you're seeing something special this year. You're watching a team grow up right in front of you from the quarterback on. I mean, and it's actually really cool. Even an offensive line that got shuffled around, you know, and you're just seeing these guys grow into like a real powerful looking college football team. And I think it's going to continue. I wanted to ask you guys, you know, here's Ohio State. It's got one loss, can't afford to lose again, obviously. You got a team that just lost for its second time coming in. And this was going to be the big early, you know, Big Ten showdown. Is the momentum so much so on Ohio State's side, and how would you describe Penn State's momentum? What are they playing for at this moment?
I honestly believe this. I'm not just saying it as somebody who's been critical of James Franklin. I don't know what Penn State would be playing for. Their coach doesn't know what team they're playing for this week. He doesn't know what stadium they're going to. I don't know how you walk into that locker room and say, let's really get ready to turn around from what happened, the most embarrassing loss of his tenure, and say, let's rally. I mean, he can say that, but I don't know who's going to believe it.
It seems pretty clear.
Clearly, they all know that LSU and USC are pursuing him, and that he is not saying he won't take it.
Yeah.
So, that's the part to me. I have a hard time looking at the number for this week and the matchup for Ohio State and saying, you know, is this the guy that they want to go to war for?
That's
this is the guy who loses 15 players a year to the transfer portal. They already don't buy what James Franklin is selling.
That's why I'm so curious to see what kind of team shows up here on Saturday night. I think we know what Ohio State's going to show up with, the fire, the verve. I'm just interested in watching Penn State that first half to see what they're made of.
I think Penn State will be, I think the players, and again, I said this on another video, on the Bold Predictions video, which people will see on Friday morning, but
spoiler alert.
I think that Penn State,
this guy,
the kids on that roster are very talented. The kids on that roster are very competitive. Those kids understand what people are going to be saying and have been saying now for the last couple days about the USC job, the LSU. Like, those kids are playing for themselves. They're playing for the program that they play in. Maybe not James Franklin. Maybe so James Franklin. I don't know. We don't know how he's able to smooth things over in the locker room, but he's obviously good at that. He's done that his whole career. He's one of those guys that people are like, oh, that's...
Well, that's why I threw it out there, because I think it's a curious moment.
Salesman of what he's selling, I don't know.
But I think it's going to be a better game than people are anticipating. That's my feel on it.
Just, last thought is, when a team that doesn't know if everybody's bought in gets punched in the mouth, do you punch back, or do you really start to check yourself and wonder where things are heading?
You find out real quick who if people did buy in.
Absolutely, and I don't know that is there for this Penn State team, because it has a coach that's got 2 feet out the door, not just one. And so I just wonder what happens when Ohio State punches.
Yeah. That means Jahan Dotson's got to make some plays on Saturday night. And Sean Clifford's got to get him the ball.
Going to have to do it on Denzel Burke, and we'll find out if what's true and what's not on Saturday night at 7:30, Ohio State and Penn State, the Wednesday night tradition on the practice report, brought to you by Byers Auto. The last 2 scholarship players off the field tonight, Jackson Smith-Njigba and Sevyn Banks. Again, he's making a habit, that cornerback who started the year struggling, turning in the extra work, getting ready for this second half or this championship push. Just to throw that update out there as we do every Wednesday when we get to see it. That's Berm, Spencer, Tim. I am Austin. This has been the Practice Reports, brought to you by Byers Auto. Stay with us for full coverage of Ohio State and Penn State at LettermenRow.com.